Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You ready to flex those imagination muscles? Because today we're exploring The Secret Library of Lost Worlds, a fantasy novel that takes a pretty cool premise. What if the stories we read could actually, you know, open doors to other realities? Like
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah, it kind of flips that classic portal fantasy idea on its head, right? It's not just about adventure. It's about, like,
Yeah.
what happens when we actually have that power? The
Yeah.
responsibility that comes with it.
Totally. And the story throws us right into the action with Evelyn, this like quiet librarian who stumbles upon this hidden archive tucked away in her, I'm just going to quote this here, dusty, ancient workplace. I mean, come on, dusty, ancient library. You happy? Hello?
Right. Instant chills.
Exactly. And inside, she finds these books that act as gateways to these like crazy, vivid worlds. She's reading about a desert with three suns, and then bam, she's practically swimming through an underwater kingdom with like glowing coral. It's what?
The visuals are seriously stunning. But what I found really interesting is how those fantastical elements, they all connect back to the story's bigger themes.
Okay.
Each world is more than just a pretty setting. It reflects like a different piece of the puzzle.
And those pieces start falling into place pretty quickly, right? It's not all sunshine and glowing coral. Every time Evelyn peeks into one of these realms, her own world starts to like glitch out. Lights flicker, things get moved around. And there's this growing sense of like uneasiness, like reality itself is kind of fraying at the edges.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of balance comes in. The story suggests that these worlds exist in this like delicate equilibrium, and it's Evelyn's actions, her
Mhm.
reading, her imagining, that's disrupting that balance.
Okay, so I'm picturing like a cosmic scale tipping back and forth with every page turn. But what's actually at stake here? Like, what happens if this balance totally collapses?
Well, the story paints a pretty vivid picture. We start seeing things from the portal worlds, like bleeding into Evelyn's reality. Weird plants sprouting up shadows, moving in ways that just don't make sense. It's like the boundaries between these worlds are becoming porous, and the consequences could be, catastrophic.
Okay, so we've got a multi-dimensional crisis brewing, but thankfully Evelyn's not totally alone in this, right? The story introduces these gatekeepers, this ancient order tasked with keeping those gates between worlds firmly shut.
Think of them as the guardians of balance, the ones who understand how these realms work and the delicate forces that hold them in check. But there's a catch. The gatekeepers have vanished, leaving Evelyn to face this escalating chaos without a guide or a mentor.
Talk about high stakes.
Yeah,
Right, so you've got this everyday librarian suddenly thrust into the role like cosmic savior. What's that like for her? How does she even begin to wrap her head around all of this?
it's fascinating because her journey isn't just about saving the world. It's about self-discovery, too. Evelyn starts out as this shy, bookish character, content in her quiet world of literature. But as she goes deeper into these other realms, she's forced to confront her own fears, her own limitations, and ultimately discover a strength and resourcefulness she never knew she had.
It's like a classic hero's journey, but with a twist. It's not just about slaying dragons or conquering evil. It's about understanding responsibility, about grappling with the consequences of one's actions on a grand scale. And I have a feeling Evelyn's actions are going to have some pretty major consequences.
Oh, absolutely. The story takes us on a thrilling ride as Evelyn navigates not only the fantastical landscapes of these portal worlds, but also the increasingly complex, ethical dilemmas of her situation. And her journey ultimately leads her to a choice, a sacrifice, that will determine the fate of not just her world, but all the realms connected to it.
Okay, so last we left off, Evelyn, our librarian turned unlikely heroine was facing, a multidimensional mess of her own making, no pressure or anything. But she's also like discovering this whole other side to herself, which I find so interesting.
Yeah, it's really well done how the story weaves those personal stakes into the larger cosmic crisis.
Mhm.
Evelyn's not just trying to save the world, she's figuring out who she is in the process.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to watch how she approaches this monumental task.
Right, instead of just totally panicking, which, let's be honest, I would be doing. She throws herself into understanding these worlds, like how they work, how they connect. She's deciphering ancient symbols in this floating archipelago, navigating these crazy winds that could literally toss her into oblivion. It's like she's become a student of the universe.
And what's so refreshing is that her knowledge, her love of books, it actually becomes her superpower. It's not brute force that's going to solve this problem,
Yeah.
but understanding strategy, careful application of what she learns.
And her teachers are pretty extraordinary. Right. We've got sentient coral beings in this underwater kingdom, this creature in the enchanted forest whose song literally controls the weather. I mean, these encounters could have been just pure fantasy, but they're not.
Exactly. They highlight Evelyn's approach. which is so crucial to her success.
Hmm.
She doesn't go in trying to dominate or control these other worlds. She listens, she observes, she respects the unique cultures and beings she encounters.
So it's not a conquer and fix mentality. It's more about collaboration. Like she realizes she needs the expertise of these otherworldly beings to even have a chance at restoring balance.
Exactly. That theme of interconnectedness, it runs through every level of the story. It's not just that the worlds are literally linked, but that Evelyn's success hinges on her ability to forge these alliances, to see the bigger picture, to recognize that her actions have ripple effects far beyond her own world.
Okay, but even with all that knowledge, all those alliances, things are still escalating, right? I mean, reality itself is starting to come undone.
It is. And the story doesn't shy away from that imagery. We see streets cracking open, buildings just vanishing, replaced by landscapes from the portal worlds. It's both terrifying and awe-inspiring. That sense of familiar reality just dissolving before your eyes.
Oh, I can totally picture it, that sense of surreal chaos. It must be a turning point for Evelyn, seeing just how high the stakes really are.
It is. It forces her to confront the possibility that all her efforts might be in vain. That even with all she's learned, all she's sacrificed, it might not be enough to stop this, multiversal meltdown.
Well, what does she do? Does she give up? Or does she, double down? Because honestly, I'm not sure what I would do.
Well, Evelyn doesn't give up. In a moment of true heroism, she rallies her allies, gathers all the knowledge she's acquired, and confronts the source of the imbalance head-on. And what she discovers there changes everything.
Ooh, that sounds ominous. Are we talking like a final boss battle? Some hidden truth revealed? Don't leave us hanging. What does she find at the heart of this cosmic crisis?
She finds a nexus point, this swirling vortex of energy where all the portals intersect. And at the very center, a book.
Wait, a book. So this whole multidimensional catastrophe hinges on a book.
Remember, this story is ultimately about the power of stories themselves, of imagination. And this book, it represents the source, the very genesis of all the creative energy that birthed these realms. It's both powerful and fragile, the key to everything.
And I'm guessing destroying it would sever the connection between the worlds, like cutting the main power cord to the whole system.
Exactly. But it's not a simple decision. Destroying the book would also seal the portals forever, cutting Evelyn off from the world she's come to love, the friends she's made.
Wow, that's a heavy choice. On the one hand, she saves her world, restores balance. On the other, she loses access to these incredible realms, these amazing beings. It's a sacrifice on a massive scale. It's not just about saving the world, but losing a part of herself in the process.
And that's the core of the novel's message. The difficult choices we face when wielding great power, when trying to fix something we might have broken. It asks, what are we willing to sacrifice for the greater good? And how do we live with the consequences of our choices, even the necessary ones?
Okay, so we're on the edge of our seats here, right?
Right.
Evelyn's got this impossible choice. Destroy this book, this source of, incredible power and creation, save her world, but lose access to these amazing realms and the connections she's made. There's no winning.
Right. And that's what makes the story so powerful.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us easy answers, like a simple good versus evil thing. It's a real dilemma, a moral gray area. That makes us think about how complicated these choices can be.
So what does she do? Does she make the sacrifice?
She does. The scene where she destroys the book, it's breathtakingly written. It's not like a triumphant moment,
Yeah.
It's more like sorrow, a deep understanding of the loss that comes with doing what has to be done. She's not just destroying the book, she's closing off a part of herself, severing those ties to worlds that have become so important to her.
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It must be such a relief knowing she saved her world, but also incredibly heartbreaking to watch those portals fade away, those connections dissolve.
Absolutely. The story really captures that bittersweet feeling.
Yeah.
There's a real sense of grief, of letting go. But it also shows how much Evelyn has grown. Her transformation from this timid librarian to someone who understands what responsibility really means, who's willing to make the hard choices, even when they hurt.
But she's not the same person who first found that hidden archive.
Right.
Even though those portals are closed, those experiences have changed her.
Exactly. The story does a beautiful job of showing that even though she goes back to her normal life in the library, she carries those experiences with her. The knowledge, the friendships, the lessons, they've become a part of who she is.
It's like the story saying that even when we close certain doors, the adventures we've had, the worlds we've explored, they stay with us. They change how we see ourselves and the world around us.
And maybe that's the most powerful message of all. The power of stories, of imagination, to transform us, to change our perspectives, and to leave a mark on us.
It all comes back to that question the story asks, right? If you had access to a library of portal worlds, would you take the risk, knowing what could happen?
Yeah, it really makes you think about the balance between curiosity and responsibility, the excitement of the unknown, and the weight of our choices.
This deep dive has been amazing. So many emotions, so many insights. It's a powerful reminder of what stories can do, how they can transport us, challenge us, and ultimately change us. So keep exploring, keep questioning. And who knows, maybe you'll stumble upon your own secret library someday. Thanks for joining us.